Hello and welcome back to our show. I'm Dale, and here's Mike.
Hey, Dale.
Hey.
How's it going this evening?
Well,
Taxes ahead. Did you have to make that sign, or did some clever person have that located on the internet somewhere?
no, a clever person found it and put it up behind his back.
Uh-huh.
Okay, all right. Sorry to put that up behind your back. This is a still from one of our videos, and this is found on the internet. We wanted to have this part two of this court hearing. We wanted to have it last night, but things just didn't work out. Or they were too quirky. They didn't quite work out.
Yeah, they did quirk out.
They
Yes.
did. As a matter of fact, that's going to happen every once in a while. And tonight, when trying to log on to Google Hangouts, it said, "Oh, you want 10 other things?" No, I don't. Give me the same interface as always. I went through it like 4 times, and the 5th time it finally said, "Oh, well, of course, you want this." Yes, thank you very much. I mean, this is on Monday, it'll be our 250th show in a row, 250 in a row. And I already know what it looks like, but they're always doing changes.
We didn't sleep in between any of those episodes either. So this has been,
No, only during them. That's right.
Yes,
So,
yes.
one of the things I want, this is part 2 of 2, so you can relax. But one of the things I wanted to point out was there are going to be times I can't walk everywhere with a video recorder. That's just impossible. So when Keith Heck was bullying me, when he was chest bumping, just think of the kind of chutzpah it takes to chest bump somebody. It's one thing if maybe you're 22, but you're, I don't know what he is, 85 or something, and you're chest bumping somebody. It's like, whoa, it was more like a belly bump.
I don't think he's that old.
Well, and he was so angry that the secretary, Terry Wharton, she was grabbing onto his arm because he had his hand in a fist. He was going to beat me. Okay?
That was only 3 times.
Yeah. Well, I got 2 more for Terry Wharton. So, of course, they both denied that he even touched me. Okay. So how do you know that's true? Well, it's true because a lot of things led up to that, and that's just who the guy is. Okay. But logically speaking, to be honest about it, you don't know. I could be making it up. I'm not, but I could. So the same thing goes with this character right here. This is Mark Bartholomew. So he's going to say that I'm lying. Join the crowd. There are other people, small crowd, fortunately, but very vocal, who are absolutely sure that everything I say and most of what Mike says is totally a lie all the time. Like the HR director, where we've got videotape of him saying it. Oh, everything is a lie. Yeah, well, all right, whatever. That's J.J. Schofield. And so in this particular case, Mark Bartholomew, he's the one that wrote to the court in the brief he provided to the court that to tell people, the voters, that this tax, this sales tax, a grants pass, will be permanent tax. Well, they would be confused by that. They're not confused by that. And the word permanent, that's just not the right word, because there's no such thing as permanent. Look, that's a lie. I mean, just let's be straight. It's a lie. And when the judge says it, okay, Judge, Your Honor, with all due respect, that's a lie. Okay, even if the judge is saying it, it's just not true. People do.
Well, and he would say, "Well, it isn't a lie. Here, look, see, here's my dictionary.
Oh,
please. You read what it says here. It says permanent means unending,
to the end of time."
Yes, really? But you know what? Listen, clearly, this can't be the first time this has ever been litigated. Somehow, the meaning of the word permanent has to be listed somewhere where they talked about it during some court case, and that clearly it doesn't mean until the end of time in terms of the lives of human beings. It has to mean something different than that. It means it's a reasonable expectation that I am going to be driving this car permanently, because I'm not going to I'm going to drive it until the wheels fall off. So to me, that's permanent ownership, or something along those lines. A
better one. He will always be my brother. Okay, I may not appreciate my brother's lifestyle, but he's always going to be my brother.
There you go.
My brother, after I'm gone and he's gone.
Right.
Forever.
And that's, yes. And perhaps that's not a good analogy because of that. There are things that, you might say, well, I'm renting here and I'm going to be here temporarily and I'm looking forward to be permanently placed somewhere else. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be there until you die. It just means that I consider this, I'm very, transitory in this particular position, and I'm going to be permanently placed over here. Well, people use it in that context all the time.
Here's the telling thing to me, okay? Not that we won, because we didn't win, okay? But the telling thing to me is this one word means so much to the city, so much to the city's lawyers, so much to his advisors that we're all paying for, so much to the judge that they couldn't let go of this one word. That's how essential it is that you don't hear that this is part of this bill, part of the law that they're trying to pass. They are going to any extreme to prevent you from associating the word permanent with this, that they go out of their way.
That is the whole point of the whole thing. That you don't go, well, you think that it has the same sort of temporary connotation that a levy perhaps does.
Well, it doesn't have a sunset. That's what it means. There's no sunset. That there's no end time. We're not talking about those end times. Shut up. Okay, what we're talking about, it doesn't have an expiration date. Okay, so it's forever as far as rules. And I talked with the lawyer afterwards, someone that we kind of trust, and as far as lawyers can be trusted. And he said, no, there's a legal precedent to this. I mean, it means something in law also. It's a good word. It's a usable word. So what the judge did in this case, and I've heard a lot about this judge, and I thought, well, just like with commissioners, you don't really know until you've had your own personal experience. And up to that point, you treat them with respect. And afterwards, you slap them around, figuratively speaking, because they've lied to you. Well, in this case, everybody lied. It's just simply not true. So, all right, you start off with a guy that's lying about that. Oh, people will be confused. People will not be confused. It's just handy for you to say that. It's simply not true. And then you'll hear me say, well, Your Honor, I don't know exactly when to bring this up. Well, go ahead and do it now. And I said, I tried to take the papers in to the right place to make sure they got delivered to the right person. I even sort of apologized to Karen Frk later because, I put her name on there too. I didn't know what to do. So one of them I had made up, you've got to hand them in to the right person. And so recently it was, who's that guy, Mike, that's involved out in Sunny Valley, and he's on the other side from all the residents there? What's that guy's name? It's got kind of an odd name.
Yeah, and just because now you want me to say it, I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't say it either. But you all know who we're talking about. Just yell at the screen, and we'll know what you're saying to us. Anyway, so Andreas Bleck. Andreas Bleck. The people there, they're trying to put they were at the fair and they were trying to get people to sign up so they can put something on the ballot so the voters can decide whether or not they should overturn this decision that the commissioners made. These guys are serious. They're leaving no stones unturned. Probably the Land Use Board of Appeals will step in. Well, they're going to say something. We don't know what they're going to say. Well, these guys aren't resting on that. They're serious about wanting to keep their community quiet for families and that kind of stuff. This guy's serious about wanting to have gravel trucks traveling down their residential roads. Okay, He wants to get their whole residence declared as a business zone. And they said, no, don't do this. This is a residential zone. So Andreas Bleck, he turned the papers in to the wrong people. And the judge says, sorry, you didn't turn it into the right people. Andreas Bleck, and this guy's got bucks, right? I have none. Lots and lots and lots of help, lots of people who did good things to help put this together. But I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do one with one name, this guy, who I think is the right one, and one with 4 different names on it, because I don't know who to give it to. And depending on what happens when I get there, I'll give him one or the other. Well, I gave him the one with 4 names. this is part 2 of what I'm trying to say is who is not telling you the truth. This guy, when I said to him, I just want to be sure I give this to the right person, sir. I usually say that kind of thing. And he says, I can't give you legal advice. Really? I just want to give it to the right person. And I didn't give him that look or anything. I just said, all I want to do is give it to the right person. Well, as I said, I can't give you legal advice. Okay. So then I asked him, so that's 2. Then I asked him, who wrote this? Maybe that'll give me a clue. That's what I said. And he said, I don't know. So he didn't deny the first thing. He didn't deny the second thing. He chose to deny the third thing. Now, I'm saying that that's what he said. He's saying, no, he didn't. Well, you don't know who's right. Maybe nobody's right in this world. Maybe nothing is permanent. Maybe there's no such thing as right in this world. But on the other hand, if you've got to choose one, I would implore you to pick the one who's a proven liar. Now, let's play the tape.
My obligation is to authorize a fair ballot title.
Well, you'll know.
I'm just wondering if it's fair and clear to say it's permanent sales tax when it can be.
Seems obvious that I'm not going to win that argument, which also wasn't the argument that we put up. The argument that we put up is that this violates the single issue point. That's why we didn't put that in there, because we kind of thought this might happen. Look, it's not necessary to put in the thing about the jail utility fee because it's going to sunset anyway, and the city council could put it back on the next day. So any vote that anybody has, and where they think that they're influencing that weather pattern, false. Second thing is, they said that they've run out of room to put any additional words, permanent or any other thing, temporary. Well, that would give them the room. They could put in all kinds of things. See, in this case, they're saying, do you like kittens? Do you like sunshine? Oh, and also here's the tax. Nah, we don't need to, let's just lay it out in front of the public. Put this first, put something else second if you like, but let's just be honest with people and tell them, may I share one additional detail, sir, or would you like me to wait till later?
Well, you get a chance to rebut what the other side says.
This won't be a rebuttal of what they have to say, so I want to be sure it falls within.
It relates to the ballot title.
When I did the best that I could to turn in these papers and trying to follow the procedure, I took our pleading here to the city council chambers and asked, to whom should I give this? And I was told by Mark Bartholomew, I cannot give you legal advice. I just want to know who to turn it into, sir. That's all that I want to know. I asked him, can you tell me, please, who wrote this? I thought that might be a clue. He said, I don't know. I don't know. That, to me, sir, is emblematic of this entire process. If they just be straight with us, then we can decide what we actually want to do. I'm just asking that the public gets the straight information from their city government. That's all.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
And Mr. Bartholomew, thank you, Your Honor. I'm Mark Bartholomew, City Attorney for Grants Pass. First off, I want to respond to something Mr. Matthews just said. He just lied to the court. He never asked me who wrote this. If he asked me who wrote it, I would have told him. There's no reason I wouldn't tell him that. So just to make a record, he lied.
Did he he didn't happen to mention just there who actually wrote it, though, did he?
No, he never has.
Is he the one who wrote it?
I don't know, but I think so. Oh. I've been told yes, but he's not admitted it. Oh. And I don't know. And the other thing is, why be that way about any of these? It's like David Reeves. I'm not going to let you have any more because we have in the past. I won't let you have a nice, good copy to share with the public of the videos. Why are you being a bitter pill about this? Just
well, we're gonna get that anyway. It's just gonna be a little bit more logistics involved. That's all.
Well, that's great of you, Mike. I'm glad you're able to work around David Reeves is making it nearly impossible for us to give you a good copy. If you notice, every once in a while in this show, people are talking and other words seem to be coming out of their mouth that looks like Keith Heck come alive. You're putting words in my mouth. That's not because it's partly due to your bandwidth at home and partly due to the fact we're trying to give you something that looks good and sounds good. Yeah, maybe I don't, but we're trying to give it to you to top quality, and there's people who will just do any, really, buddy, Mark Bartholomew, I'm not going to give you legal advice about where it's supposed to go. You're supposed to share your case with the other guys. They're supposed to share theirs with yours. We gave them ours like 3 days ahead of time. I got theirs the night before. Okay, so, go ahead, liars lie, cheaters cheat, do whatever you want. Well, that's the law. Yeah, but really, is that the way we're going to live? That's what this is really all about. What it's really all about is just being honest with the people. Tell them it's a permanent tax. Tell them, don't put on there that you're going to get rid of something that's going to sunset anyway. Don't tell them that they're going to get a choice of what they want when they really don't get a choice. And if you're going to maintain the bragging attitude that you can put this back on or take it off anytime you want to, that's not even a vote. That's all false. Yeah. They're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well, they just want to be able to make it seem as though you want this, as opposed to them wanting to put it on you. It's kind of, it's like it's the Jedi mind trick. You want this tax. We will take this other tax off if you put this tax on. You want it now, don't you? Of course you do. And it isn't that at all. And hopefully by the time this comes around, people will be, wise to it.
Well, we said this lots of times. If you can't make up your mind about which way things should go, look at how the other side is comporting themselves. Just look. If you've got a group of people, there's plenty of people, maybe in our audience too, who think that a levy, a safety levy, is a good thing. Is there really such a thing as safety? Can anyone ever really safe in this life? See, that's stupid. We can talk everyday English, and maybe they think that's a good idea. And then you look at Mark Gatlin and Sherry Adkins, his campaign advisor when he was running for commissioner, and Mark Gatlin was sitting right there, and I heard them say it. Don't worry about the 10% skimmed off the top, because it's not skimmed off the top. The sheriff will get 100%. There's no 10% skimmed off the top. It's a lie. It's illegal, according to state law, to do that. Not because it's a lie, because state doesn't care if it's a lie. What they care about is, are you saying something that's not on the ballot initiative? And that's what they were saying. Oh, by the way, this was, hey, don't do that. It's illegal. Now, the state's not enforcing the law, so why should Mark Gatlin care? If that's the kind of person that you want as a commissioner, he's available. He's tanned, rested, and ready. I look at these two sides and I say, who's lying to me? If I don't already have made up if I haven't already made up my mind, I just look, who's lying to me? And then I'm not going to vote in that direction. That's all.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the problem with that method, it isn't a problem for you or for me or for some other people. But if you're just somebody who just got your ballot in the mail and you're looking at the ballot and, this person's name is the first impression of them that you've ever had, then you're going to have a difficult time making a choice. And I'd say, that's why you need to take this a little bit more seriously if you want local government to be any different. Some people are probably just oblivious to all of this.
It's also easier to keep quiet. Now, Mike and I have said this to you guys lots of times. We're pouring our heart into this and our small little fortunes. Okay, we're not getting reimbursed anything for any of this except when you say thank you. That truly is. I'm not making it up. That's our only reward. Okay, so Mike and I have done this. By Monday, we'll have done this 250 times in a row without a single break. That is crazy. We're doing it every night, and we put a lot of time into informing you. Now,
although I will tell you,
yes.
coming very, very soon, I will be absent from here for probably better part of a week. And that's coming up in not more than about a week here, because
we can't come up in 140 days after we've hit 1 year?
No.
Okay.
I have stuff to do in Napa before rain falls. And
okay. All right. So
no way around it.
I will struggle by without Mike. You know, I don't like to. I don't have to have him. You know that. He doesn't have to have me. You know that too. But I like the chemistry of this show, even though he can be a pill sometimes. Okay. So, he says, what I was trying to say is what it actually comes down to, and not to draw too fine a point on that, everybody, we're doing our part. You've said that we are. You like the fact that we're holding their feet to the fire. You like the fact that we're holding them accountable. You like the fact that we're showing the videos and you can see for yourself. Okay. Are you doing your part? It would probably sound like a televangelist. Are you really doing your part? If you're not talking with your neighbors,
we need your tithes.
No, what we need you to do is just talk with your neighbor. That's all. See, because we're stopped at this point. And we've got a loyal group of people who watch this, and we see the numbers, so we know pretty much, not exactly who. Don't be paranoid, but when we've got a pretty good idea of who's watching this and the number of likes that we have. And thank you for hitting like. I appreciate that. Other people look and they go, oh, look, it's got a couple of likes. That's good, and twice as many likes. That's good too. It is about word of mouth. Now you think of the alternatives: the Courier. KJO, not going to happen. The TV stations, the commissioners, Mark Gatlin, this is not going to happen. This is the only place where, even if you think our theories are full of it, okay, well, what about the videos? You can see for yourself. You need to tell your neighbors what's happening. You do know people who haven't a clue. And see, sorry, but if you don't do your part, then what we're doing here has a really limited circulation. So we count on, once we pump it out of the heart, ooh, this is a pretty good analogy. Once it gets out to your veins, it's got to be up to you to don't let arteriosclerosis set in.
Yes.
Open
up a vein and give somebody a transfusion.
Yes, that's right.
Make sure you're using clean needles and tubing now.
Yeah, and you don't need to say every single word that we've said, although I like that. No, that's not necessary. Just tell them what you've seen. I saw Simon Hare saying this. I saw Keith Heck saying that. I heard if I ever stop talking, I heard what Mark Bartholomew said. And he said that they can revoke your vote at any time. Well, if more people knew that, this thing would die a quicker death, or would die a certain death. Let's go ahead and let him eventually get on to that point. Please go ahead, Mike, eventually.
I appreciate the fact that you've read the memos we submitted in both cases. I think they're comprehensive. The case law is quite clear. I'll respond briefly to the allegation that we violate the single subject rule. Of course, the Constitution says an initiative shall embrace one subject only in matters properly connected therewith. In this case, we've got really three things going on with the ballot measure. We've got a sales tax that would be implemented. We have the property tax levy that would be removed, and the jail utility fee would be taken away. So the case law on this, to discern whether or not it embraces only one subject, is whether or not there's a, quote, unifying principle logically connecting all provisions. If so, then it covers a single subject and passes constitutional muster. So in this case, the unifying principle is public safety funding, and the matters properly connected therewith are the sales tax and the removal of the jail utility fee and the property tax levy. One of the arguments that I think Mr. Graham made in his brief, or perhaps Mr. Matthews, was that someone may want to, and Mr. Matthews just made an oral argument, someone may want to vote for one part of this, but not another. So the wealthy older gentleman who just wants all the taxes in the world, he's somehow deprived of the possibility to still be subject to the property tax levy, the jail utility fee, and the sales tax because the operation of the initiative is to remove the fee and the property tax in lieu of the sales tax. The court, Supreme Court of Appeals, addressed that very issue. It's directly on point. Supreme Court, actually, Oregon Education Association versus Phillips, and the court said that you may have an issue like that may present that voter with a difficult choice, but if the limitation on elections were not found in the measure, another voter might well face the difficult choice of desiring to vote for most of the measure, but not wanting to do so unless it also contains such a limitation. And I think that example is far more germane to the voters in Josephine Grants Pass than the example Mr. Matthews gave. I think, certainly people may be interested in voting for a sales tax to supplant the other taxes. Very few people would want all of those taxes and or fees. And
okay, so because in this guy's opinion, very few people, this will apply to very few people, then we're going to go ahead and give them no choice. It's just his opinion, and it shouldn't affect anybody. And if you divide these things up, then it will affect nobody. And the fact that he's done what, a scientific poll and found out that there were very few people, well, that's BS. And the judge, in my opinion, should be all over that and saying, now, hold on a second. My job, he said at the beginning, is to be sure that this is fair. It's not fair for the person that would like more taxes. There are people like that. Just because it's not you doesn't mean there's not people like that. And the opposite is true. There are people who don't want any taxes at all. I don't think I agree with them. There shouldn't be any taxes. I say no new taxes, but then they can't. Yeah, but then they don't get what they want either. And so what this is really doing, as opposed to what he's saying, it sounds good, even in a court. Well, it's the Supreme Court. Well, that's supposed to impress everybody. It doesn't impress me. Are you always impressed with the Supreme Court, even of the United States? How about the Supreme Court or whatever they have in the United Nations? Okay, happy with that too? Okay, so, or the Supreme Ecclesiastical Court or something, whatever that's supposed to be. No, I'm not that impressed with them.
I've never heard of that.
Well, there's probably one in Rome, with the Catholic Church or something, I would think, with the Pope. Don't get into that. So anyway, the point is it right that he says, well, they're all allied. Well, yes, they're all about money. That's true. So it's about American greenbacks. That's the unifying principle. But the other thing is, you've set up two straw men. One, they're both things they're going to stop anyway. And he's going to say, if I ever shut up, that we can revoke those at any time. In fact, he says we can put things on at any time. We don't need the voters.
And he actually does say that. I mean, we've said it over and over and over here, and you've yet to hear it from his lips, but it actually happens, and you're going to see it tonight.
He said a lie in the courtroom, Your Honor. No, that's the truth. Go ahead.
If we were to do it the way they suggest, it would be an a la carte option. So you have opposite spectrums. You may have someone who votes to retain the utility fee and votes to retain the property tax levy, and then the voters also vote to implement the sales tax. Well, then you've got too much money, and that's not fair to voters. However, they may all get rejected, in which case we're in a worse public safety funding situation than we have right now.
It's like they care if they're getting too much money. That's their dream, is to get too much money.
It borders on confessing your sexual desires in court to say, oh, too much money. Well, that wouldn't be good. And then he follows up by saying, and then if we don't have any of them, as the guy that doesn't want to vote for any taxes, well, that wouldn't be good for anybody, because hey, it's not up to you to decide. It's up to the voters. And if you put a clear ballot in front of them, they'll understand, or they're going to vote. They're going to be lunkheads and vote for the wrong thing, but they're the lunkheads and you're the servants. And it really bothers me that this guy is now going to argue that the voters are very intelligent when he said already that they wouldn't understand the word permanent because they'd be confused by it. He's having it both ways, and the judge is just letting him go, and the judge is helping him. It's like they were both on the same legal team. Go ahead, yes. Mike.
Yeah. And that's not good for anybody either. So not only would that violate law to rule him that direction, it would also be terrible public policy. The example that Mr. Matthews gave regarding kittens and sunshine was also directly considered by the Supreme Court in the case of McIntyre versus Forbes.
Watch what I do with the papers.
The case we found where something was invalid.
I know what it says.
Centric rule, and that was because that proposed law covered such a wide range of topics, such as state funding for light rail,
environment,
availability of cardlock gas stations,
environment,
regional problem solving and land use matters,
environment,
regulation of confined animal feeding, preemption of local pesticide regulation,
environment,
timber harvest rules,
environment,
shooting ranges for noise pollution,
environment,
and protection of salmon.
Environment.
So that's your kittens and sunshine case.
They've got nothing in common.
Kittens and sunshine. I didn't know they made judgment about kittens and sunshine. I'd like to read that.
And so I think the court actually refers to that as log rolling. So that's the public policy behind a single subject. When you have a proposed measure that hits two drastically unrelated items, where a voter ordinarily wouldn't be inclined to vote for one, but for the fact they have to vote for the other aspect of it, which they are in favor of, and to get the whole thing through. So it's kind of shoehorning or bootstrapping something else in that's completely unrelated. That is not what we have here.
Shoehorning, bootstrapping,
so moving on
and
to Mr. Graham's arguments. Generally, the case law on the specific ballot language, court says, this is again Supreme Court Burbridge versus Paulus. We are not concerned with whether petitioners' proposed titles may be better, or even whether we could devise a better one ourselves.
Okay, so that's the main point at which Graham goofed up. And that he was talking about, well, this needs to be rephrased because we don't like the phrasing. And Burbridge says, that's full of it. You don't get a chance to choose. The only thing that you should be appealing is not that you would like it worded differently, is that it's deceptive. He should have been hitting more on the deceptive side rather than, well, let's put this in a different order. I understand his point, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Burbridge just shoots that out of the water, and we've got people among our friends who never say anything good about the other side. You know, this was good. This little part and the case law was brilliant by Marx Bartholomew. I think he's a liar and a cheater, and I don't mind saying that because he did. He lied. And he cheated in this as well. People won't understand. Give me a break. But he's right about this, and this hurt everybody that's on our side. Go ahead.
We pass, statutory muster, and they do. For instance, the caption. And again, I think this needs to be viewed through the prism or viewed from the understanding that we're constrained by word limits. I've worked on several ballot titles before, and there have been times when my colleagues and I have just kind of poured over the language, trying to come up with synonyms to replace longer phrases so we can stay under the word limit. I mean, you really held in check. It's a challenge to come up with the wording to stay under the word limit for these. So in this case, the caption has to be 10 words and reasonably identify the subject nature of the measure. Well, it does that. The question, not more than 20 words, plainly phrasing the chief purpose. We believe that it does. They're arguing that the wording should be reorganized. They say that they're suggesting that the sales tax should be the first item, the first thing mentioned in the question. However, my response to that is, one, I think that violates Burbridge. That's just their subjective editorial position on this. And two, I'm sorry, we violate Burbridge to change.
Let me just ask you for this argument. Didn't the city say, shall the city implement a 2% sales tax and eliminate a 1.79 per dollar property tax levy, eliminate the jail and utility fee? Couldn't you do that just easily?
We could. However, you know, I mean, the law is pretty clear where it's the law in that case is whether it plainly phrases the chief purpose. And I think the chief purpose of this is just as much the elimination of the property tax levy and the utility fee as it is the elimination of the sales tax. I think that you know, the opponents are focusing all the attention on the sales tax.
So is the city council.
The point is criminal justice funding, and those are the three elements to it. And so they're focusing on the most undesirable one, or the one that gets the headlines, and that's sales tax. Sales tax is no more important to this than the elimination of the levy and the utility.
Oh, that's not
what
true.
What a lie. Stop for a second.
They also say,
come on,
Yeah,
come on.
Clearly
Look,
untrue.
I mentioned later in my argument that it is helpful every once in a while to go back, as we've done with the Constitution and with the amendments, to go back to the original thinking of the founders. That's happened many times in our history. What was it they were trying to say? The Second Amendment. What were they trying to say? Okay. A well-regulated militia. What were they trying to say? In the words of the day. It's a very important concept in law. So I used that. It didn't help, of course, because the judge had prejudged the case, prejudice. But this guy, what he's trying to say is that that the eliminating the taxes is maybe should go first because it's just as important. The newspaper, whatever you think about them, the radio station, okay, never mind the radio station, the city councilors themselves, the city lawyer, the same guy that's talking here. They all were talking about, does everybody call it the get rid of the levy bill? No. Everybody says putting on a sales tax. It's the Grants Pass sales tax law or bill. And in a court of law, you can say, well, other things are just as important. That's BS. It's BS in everyday language, okay? Just every day. That's just not true. Yes, the other two things are part of it, but now we know that they're false parts of it. And if he ever gets a chance to tell you that, he will. Go ahead, Mike.
The other thing is the word permanent. You touched on that, Your Honor. Nothing's permanent. The city can revoke the levy or the utility fee or the sales tax, for that matter, at any time. The city council, as a matter of fact, could have implemented this the sales tax without other people. However, I think it would be politically difficult to do so. They say also, I believe that it would mislead voters if we were to say that the sales tax is permanent, because again, it could be revoked. So it's misleading to say it's permanent. They also say that we're not mentioning that the utility fee and the levy will expire. Well, I think it would be perhaps misleading to say they're going to expire, because if you look at the history of property tax levies in Grants Pass, the city of Grants Pass has relied on that funding since at least the 1980s.
So thank you, Mr. Graham's point that the average voter didn't understand.
Okay, he's going to get into this flailing on Graham for saying the average voter wouldn't understand. Thank you, Bob Graham, for saying such a stupid thing, okay? Because they're just taking to a task on this. Did you hear what he said just before the judge came in for, I think, the second and last time he had any questions for him? And this is just a self-serving question. He says, the lawyer says, that the history of the county, the city has been that they bring things back. What was it? They bring things back because there's a need. Do you see the handwriting on the wall? Mike, you've talked about this in a past show.
I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
They could come right back in. I mean, he's just told you, because this is the thing I said he was going to say. He's just told you that they could revoke this at any time. Your vote, they can revoke that at any time. They could look at this and say, the people have voted, now we're going to revoke that vote anytime they want to. As a matter of fact, you don't need to vote, because he just told you that they could put this thing on, this sales tax. They could put it on without your vote. They can.
Well, yeah, you know what they could do? They could just enact some kind of a push poll where they push you toward the answer that they want you to give them,
like Roy Lindsay.
And you just come up with something where 65% of the people, and based on that, we're going to go ahead and enact this.
And they don't even need to do that, because he just said they can do it.
But that gives them some of the same cover that the election would give them.
That's what they're looking for. So they put two things on there. They're going to expire anyway. That's a false choice. And the judge says he's supposed to be in charge of making sure that it's fair and that it's not false, basically. if there's any such thing as the word false in this life of ours. Okay, what does that mean? But he just said there at the end, it's a small thing, it goes by so quickly, that the history of the city has been that they have a continuing need for such monies. And that's what you said, I think it was 2 days ago, Mike, is that you watch, what's going to happen is it may go through. If it does go through, then the city is going to say later, it's such an emergency, really, when you think about it. We need to put that back on. I mean, we have no choice, and they don't have to ask your opinion.
Well, and listen, we've heard counselors already say that that they're going to have to jack up the water and sewer fee because they have this water treatment plant thing that's coming down the pike. So what you're going to have is, you may well at some point in the near future have a jacked up, even higher than it is right now, water and sewer fee. Little ancillary fee that they have on there, the sales tax, and them pushing for a public safety levy all at the same time.
Even the only other person that voted against this besides Lily Morgan, even that guy said, Hannum, he said, yeah, I really don't, we're going to need to have this money, and to take this off is probably not a good idea, guys. Yeah, but see, they're not going to be able to pass it if they say that. I mean, they're probably like, what's the matter with you? Don't tell them that.
Well, and to some degree, he may be telegraphing their move that later that they'll just say, oh, gosh, I'm trying to think of what situation that this has happened in before, where they, where they have an idea to do something, and they, later they said, well, we just couldn't do it because, of such and such. This has happened on a federal level where they have some idea that they're going to cut taxes, and then they don't, or something along those lines, because it just couldn't.
Cheryl did it her first day in office. She gets elected by saying, well, I haven't made up my mind, and maybe really a levy is not the best way to go. And then her first day in office, first day in the hallway, she's not even sat in on the first meeting yet. She's telling a reporter, well, yeah, it sure does look like that's the only way to go.
Yeah.
So we're hitting this hard because if this passes, see, we're doing our part here, you guys, to tell you what they're saying. And then you can look at it and go, well, I love what Mark Bartholomew is saying. Okay, you love it. But if you don't like what he's saying and the way that he's saying it, and the fact that this is, in my opinion, a false choice, it's not really your vote. They don't even need your vote. He just said they were doing it for political reasons. If this passes, then you watch, Medford will be next. There's going to be a real domino effect where it happens all over the state. Okay, yeah. That's if it passes. If it doesn't pass, then perhaps this hegemony that the city council has,
or hegemony.
You're right, or hegemony, yes. Or chimney that the city council has. Maybe that'll be broken up a little bit. Why? Why is that a good thing? Because they're lying to you. Because they're trying to deceive you. They're telling you, don't get me started. Go ahead, play the rest.
They just want more of your money, and this is a means to that end. That's all.
They're cheating us. It's cheating. I live in the city. Maybe it doesn't affect you if you're watching this show. Some of you it does. Maybe it doesn't. But it's not going to stop here. And in my personal opinion, I think what you do is whenever you run up against somebody who's lied to you, you don't tolerate that, and you say, look, maybe you're a good guy in some other venue, but not in this one. You're lying to us. And it's not true that we're intelligent voters and we're also stupid voters. He's saying that they're smart and agreeing with the judge in this courtroom, while he just wrote down on the piece of paper he submitted that the voters won't understand what the word permanent means.
Okay.
That's some kind of attitude, buddy.
And I think I'd be offended if the average voter is not. So yeah, and with regard to the utility fee, the original implementation of that gave a sunset date to that. That utility fee was re-implemented in response to the latest failed criminal justice levy, the countywide justice levy. So the city council re-implemented the jail utility fee in response to that.
There it is again.
Yeah.
So most of the arguments I heard from Mr. Graham, they're not legal arguments. Talks about the indoctrination of voters, the notion of permanency. It cuts both ways. Nothing here is really permanent. It'd be misleading to describe the sales tax as permanent. And touching on what you just said, his argument assumes that voters are incapable of reading the entire ballot question. The question is 20 words long. It mentions sales tax on the next line, and actually the same line as the utility fee. And you read 4 or 5 more words into it, you see sales tax. So it's not like it's hidden.
So why are you fighting so hard against this?
I think that's why, by statute, these are limited to 20 words. You can't bury anything or hide anything in 20 words. So in closing, we were aware of the scrutiny that would ensue. I mean, sales tax are unique in Oregon. Voters in Grants Pass and Josephine County are sensitive to taxes and fees, and they should be. And staff and the council, we want to prepare something that's correct and legal, and leave it for the voters to decide. And I think that's what we've done here. Thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. And Mr. Graham,
Your Honor, the city has this problem about this initiative in that they have to sell to the voters. They can't sell to the voters unless they take away some of the taxes in order to impose a new tax. And that's what they're doing here. They frame this question as a marketing tool. Hey, look, we're getting rid of these taxes and the levy, and we're going to replace it with this tax over here. In reality, they're passing the sales tax. I think that the court was I guess, took my comments and addressed them to them and say it should be worded as the court posed the question to Mr.
Let me just talk to you about that, because I was looking at that, but I noticed the caption starts out with mention sales tax. The summary starts out with mention sales tax. And so the fact that the question doesn't, the question starts out mentioning the levy and the utility fee. I'm not sure that's significant. It was just kind of corrected if there's any.
If that's the case, Judge, then why are you and legal counsel fighting so hard against putting that word in there?
Well, because they don't want it in there,
right?
Because permanent means that you're stuck with it forever. And the thing is just as the county has been indoctrinated, as the guy said, and that's not the right word really, but that you're gonna get these levies every year or whatever. The city has also been voting for property tax levies to fund public safety every, couple of years. So they may well go into this thinking that it has the same sunset as a levy does.
We watched,
reality, it doesn't.
We watched all of the public testimony. As a matter of fact, you may recall that we put up all of the public testimony so that you could see it for yourselves in their words. Okay. We put these things up. And person after person after person was saying, not everybody, but a lot of people said, do you guys realize out there in the audience that this is a permanent tax, a permanent tax? They were beating them to death with the word permanent.
Well, you know what? I think that even who's the city manager guy, or whatever his position is there, the financial guy, Jay Meredith. I think he even used the word permanent while discussing this. And by the way, that's the video that is just finishing up its download on the other computer right now. So if you care to go and sit through 3 hours, you could probably find him saying permanent a number of places.
We're going to excerpt that for you. Every once in a while we get somebody who says, can you put up the whole meeting? Yes, we can. However, I got to tell you, you're the only person that's asked for the entire meeting, and it is available other places, or at least the audio of it. And so because our
no, we have
audience
video. The video,
Yeah.
you can go watch it on the
You can.
on the city's website, but excerpting is much better because we're going, here you go, here's the salient point here, and instead of having to sit there through 3.5 hours, that's how long that video is, 3.5 hours.
Well,
Huge.
this one that we're showing you over 2 nights, 2 nights ago and tonight, this is only about 45 minutes, although it seems like it's a lot longer. And this is one of our longer shows. I'm doing this. Most people, they want to see the little encapsulation. We've always got you're not showing everything, so that's out of context. It's not out of context. Come on. You know, that's like the word permanent. It's not out of context. In this case, there's nothing out of context, buddy. And so you can see what it is that they're saying. I listened to it and still don't believe it. We can't help you.
Well, and the first half of this is already posted on YouTube right now, isn't it? And so people can watch that entire piece, right?
No.
It isn't. Okay.
No,
well,
but
then
it will be.
right. You're not putting it up in context.
Yeah, but it will be, okay? We'll put it up in
Yes.
2 parts because most people, honestly, they go and they click or they look at something, they see 45 minutes. I don't want to watch that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put it up in 2 pieces so it makes it just a little bit more bite-sized for you. It'll end up being 45 anyway, but then you can choose not to watch the second half. You got to watch the second half because that's when Mark Bartholomew says the thing I kept promising you would hear, and now you've heard it. Go ahead and play a little bit more, please, Mike.
This apprehension by the caption summary.
Well, shouldn't they be consistent? That's the point. They should be consistent. You're adopting a sales tax. That's what this is all about. The question is, is the city voters going to adopt the sales tax?
That is the question.
That's the question. Be consistent. That's what the petitioners are asking. Don't hide the ball here.
That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews, rebuttal.
Oh, here it comes.
Sometimes in the law, you go back to the intention of the original framers and looking very carefully over hours of the city council itself talking about this and asking questions about this. There are at least 2, maybe 3 city councilors that said, don't you think that we ought to revise the order of this? Why aren't we putting the fact that this is a sales tax, why don't we put that first? Wouldn't that be more honest to the people? Well, that's not the way it's framed. The way it's framed is, as opposition here said, well, it's all about keeping people safe. I don't have the exact quote. It's all about keeping people safe. Well,
Mr. Matthews, you got to agree with me that the caption starts out by saying sales tax for city public safety, and the summary starts out by saying this sales tax eliminates.
I have to agree with you. Yes, sir. It's your court. I do have to agree with you. Yes, sir.
In fact, the question starts out by the elimination of feeding the levy.
Right.
And then goes to the sales tax. How significant is that?
I think the significance behind that, as my colleague here said, is that they're just trying to be sure that we get the point that they want us to get. That this thing is really about, as Mr. Bartholomew said, it's really about, it's not about a sales tax. It's equally about eliminating things that are going to make you safer. No, they're not. This is about trying to convince you that if you say no to something you'd like to say yes to, or you say no to something where you'd like to say yes to, or no to everything, then, well, don't worry about it. It's all going to be okay. If it's true, if it was true that this was about keeping us safer, then those 2 other things wouldn't be on here at all, because that's not going to keep us safer. That's going to actually decrease the money. And the city councilors said, well, this isn't going to create enough money if we do this, or we do this, or we do this. Maybe we need to do all of them. And a number of the people who came up, and we looked at all their comments too, that were trying to advise the city council, said, why are you getting rid of something? I don't want you to get rid of that. Now, how are they supposed to vote? I would find it difficult if I was in their shoes to say yes or no to this, because the things are combined. And again, the whole idea that something is going to sunset anyway is on here. It's just a blatant attempt to try to convince you that you have control over things when you don't have control. The last point that I would make, sir, is that it's been stated here several times that all these things could be reversed or set up again by the city council. Do you think the voters have any idea? This is not the way it's being sold to the voters. By the way, if you vote for this, it really doesn't mean anything because we can outrun you anytime we want to. No, it's making them think that they have some kind of control when they have no control.
That's the best
Let's
point.
just be honest with people. What's the difficulty with saying it straight out in all of the permutations of this?
Yeah, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And if you decide to say to them, look,
saying it straight out by saying this is a permanent sales tax, it's never ever going to go away.
No, I'm not going to argue that, sir.
When it comes to fee,
I tried to do it again.
I can't argue that with you, sir. You made it clear what you think about it. Okay.
Just asking.
Sir, since you've made your feeling clear about that, I'm not going to argue that. What I'd like to say is that if you do decide to tell them, you know, fellas, go back, let's just make sure that everybody understands the real issue here. The real issue is not asking to take something down that's going to go down by itself. The real issue may end up being that you can bring it back anytime you wish with a snap of your fingers. That may be the real issue.
Yes.
I'm surprised that was brought up here today. No, you could say to them, look, this isn't going to cause you any headaches. Just reword part of this. And as far as somebody saying, well, we knew that there would be lots of scrutiny. Well, that's not what was said in public. What was said in public is, and to us, nobody's challenging this. Well, yes, we are. And we just like a little more clarity for the voters. And if we're going a little overboard for clarity for the voters, well, it's just because I don't think, as it's also been stated, that the voters are going to be confused if extra words are written in or maybe it's changed in this order. I don't think that's going to cause them any problem. It's not going to pass anyway. But you could say, listen, fellas, let's just play fair with everybody. I hope that you do, Your Honor. Thank you.
I hope that you do. Not them.
Right. One final point. I mentioned the Burbridge case. Again, all they're touching on is they think it should be reworded. To me, the three prongs to this are all inextricably linked. The court says we're not concerned with whether petitioner's proposed title may be better or even whether we could devise a better one ourselves. It's simply whether it plainly phrases the chief purpose, and usually it does. Thank you.
No, it doesn't.
Well, pursuant to ORS 25-250.296, the court is directed to review the title and measure to be initiated or hear arguments, if any, and certify to the city elections officer a title for measure which meets the requirements of ORS 250.35. It indicates the review by the court shall be first and final review and shall be conducted expeditiously, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do. As I mentioned, I tried to get prepared for this over the weekend by reading the cases. Responding to petitioner's objections, the first one is the single subject objection that both Mr. Matthews and Mr. Graham put forth. And I did read the cases, and I agree with Mr. Bartholomew that there's only been one case in the appellate history in Oregon that has invalidated the ballot title based on the same subject.
He's reading from a script that he wrote before the trial.
And after the entire proceeding, he's finally discovered the microphone is not in the right place.
Oh, okay.
And now he's gonna, bring it over, and yes, here we go.
Bartholomew cited the facts of that case were really 6 or 7 very different, diverse topics were attempted to be.
They were all about the environment.
And the court said that violates a single subject. There are other cases that are have a lot bigger variety in the cases for the subjects than this one that were found not to be invalid based on a single subject. One is Fugate.
Now, I didn't know anything about Fugate. Nobody mentioned Fugate, never heard of Fugate, and maybe it's the world's best case and says when Josephine County comes up in the future, it's all invalid. I don't know what Fugate says, okay? We did do research. Sandy Casanelli did the research. Didn't see any Fugate in any of that. She didn't, and I sure didn't. But the point is, when they're saying, well, these other cases, everything was so dissimilar, were they so dissimilar that they included things that were going to sunset anyway, even without your vote? Were they so dissimilar that the city attorney or whoever attorney at the time said, oh, we could take those on or take them, put them on or take them off anytime we want to? That's what the deception here is. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's clear.
These long pauses, I don't get it. I'm the only one that didn't have a long pause.
The referral was, the first was a crime victim's right measure. The second was something to do with evidence in criminal trials. The third was to relate release criteria of criminal defendants. The fourth was criminal sentencing and restitution. The fifth was the law concerning jury makeup. So pretty diverse topics.
Those are diverse topics.
Yet, the court found that there was a unifying principle, and therefore the single subject constitutional prohibition was not violated. I don't find that to be the case here. I think that the unifying principle is an attempt by the city to fund public safety and criminal justice services, and that's what the caption says. So that challenge will be denied. And as Mr. Matthews said, I did, he knows my feelings on the inclusion of the word permanent in the ballot title, which I think would be very misleading and false to the voters.
Very misleading and false.
According to my dictionary definition, maybe I can find that.
Very misleading and false.
Is existing perpetually, everlasting, and tell the voters that if they enact a sales tax, it's going to be there until the world goes away. I think would be false.
Till the world
really,
goes
really.
away.
Now, okay. Just look at what he just said. That besides the obvious foolishness of this, sorry, this judge in this case, that's foolish. If it's misleading and false, very misleading and false to the voters when it's in the caption, then why is it not very misleading and false when it's in the rest of the document?
Okay.
I mean, he's just saying it's very misleading and false to the voters. So shouldn't he be saying to them, listen, I've looked this over carefully. I'm reading from my pre-written notes here about what my judgment was going to be before I even walked in the courtroom, which I don't like that. And I'm going to instruct you that you should take the word permanent out of this and every future thing that you ever do as a lawyer, Mark Bartholomew.
Well, I mean, the silly thing about this is why couldn't you have, if you have an objection to the word permanent, why couldn't you just have written it that that the voters will, a yes vote will pass a sales tax that will remain in effect until the voters remove it?
Yes, many ways of putting that, and you could
just leave the other two things off of there because those things are irrelevant anyway.
They are irrelevant. It's a false choice, and well, all of it's false because they could put it on or take it off anytime they want to without. And the lawyer said that they don't even need your vote. They don't need your vote. They're doing it for politics. What was the exact word he said? It's politically. What they said, it politically difficult to do so. Politically difficult to do so? And this judge is in charge of, I mean, the whole thing should be thrown out if that's the case. This vote doesn't mean anything unless you say yes. This vote doesn't mean anything because honestly, if you say no, they could just do it. The lawyer just told you they could. Now, so what will be their tactic? If you say no, will they decide, oh, well, let's just use a little bit more political capital and put it on there anyway?
Yeah, I think they did this because they didn't want to spend political capital.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that they are spending political capital. And the reason why isn't because, well, I have an opinion, obviously everybody does, about whether this tax is a good idea or not a good idea. I don't like their tactics. And if it really is something that, well, it's really about other things, then what's your problem with this one little word? This one little word, they're going, even the judge has joined the opposition law team to fight against the rest of the people who are asking this question, to fight against the Chamber of Commerce. Really? I'm one guy. Go ahead, Mike.
So I'm not going to approve that change. Mentioning the fact that the levy is set to be expired in a couple of years and the jail fee in, I think, 2 years. I'm not going to add that. I disagree with Mr. Graham. I think the voters are pretty sophisticated.
Thanks, Bob.
Especially when it comes to money measures. I think that an average voter does know what a levy means. does know that it has to be reauthorized by the voters. I'm not going to order that language be included. Both parties have asked that the caption be, let's see.
Now, finally, he's going to something he didn't write ahead of time.
Start out by mentioning the enactment of the sales tax. I think it's cured by the fact that the caption does and the summary does. And
again, if the word permanent's not okay, why is it okay there?
It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be accurate and fair. And I think that it is accurate and fair in light of the fact that the caption starts out by saying sales tax for city public safety and criminal justice services. That's the headline. I think that's the first thing people read, and once they've read that, they take everything else in that context. And so when they go on in the question to say, shall the city eliminate a $1.79 property tax levy, eliminate the jail utility fee, and implement a 2% sales tax, I think the voters clearly would understand that that is in the context of enacting the sales tax, especially in light of the fact that the summary starts out the same way. This sales tax eliminates the local option property tax. I'm not going to order that to be changed. I think the only other thing, Mr. Graham in his written pleading objected to the fact that the levy on the average household would be reduced by $277, which I think in a vacuum would be well founded, because we really don't know what an average household is.
Yeah, right? What does average really mean?
Yes, right.
Explanatory statement. There is, under tax impacts, there's the information beginning in fiscal year 2017, the period starting July 1st, 2016. The city's local option levy of $1.79 per thousand, the assessed value will be eliminated for a single family home in Grants Pass with an average taxable assessed value of $155,000. So I think that defines what an average.
Yeah, he just got done saying there is no. How do you figure that?
Yeah,
that's how you figure it.
Property taxes for the average city home would be reduced by approximately $277 per year. So I think that's here. So I'm going to deny the challenges to the ballot. I will approve the ballot. Mr. Bartholomew, would you drop the consistent order?
And there you have it. Now you're fully informed.
Yeah, we wanted to play this for you. I realized it was a little bit long for some of you, and the show has gone a little bit longer than normal, but we wanted to be sure that you can see this so that you can share this with your neighbors. No one's ever suggested that to you before. And so that people know what it was that was said in that court of law or court of something. And so as you can see what the system is, I didn't know. A number of people said to me, when you go into that courtroom with Judge Hull, who was the original guy, well, he has to stand a chance, okay? And then when Hull recused himself, maybe because of the business Hull and Hull in town, the undertakers, maybe. And when Judge Wolke was put on, people said, you should still go, but we can tell you what the result will be ahead of time. So now you know a little bit more, because we get all kinds of, there's no justice in this world. Well, I guess you can judge that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.